When they hear what your property's doing and they hear the story about different programs you have and different things that are implemented into the lifestyle of the property and the culture, they need to feel like this is the place for me. This is where I need to be because I feel it on an emotional level.
Myself, my name's Tony. I'm the VP of Enterprise Solutions at Trust Hab. As Wes said, you've probably never heard of us, and that's fine. Many of you may get emails from me on a regular basis say, hey, I'm here. If you respond, I'll respond back. It'll be fantastic. Get excited about it. But the important thing here is that what we do, how many here, who knows what a smart apartment is? If I say smart apartments, right? So a fancy apartment's got a lot of fancy stuff in it. Alexa, open the blinds, Alexa, turn the lights on, so-and-so. It's fantastic. Not a lot of applications in student housing. Anybody ever heard of the term facilities IoT? Like 3 of us. All right, so facilities IoT, this is all about looking at things from a different perspective, right? So in smart apartments, you're looking at all the smart tech and how it's going to affect the resident. Facilities IoT is actually looking from a different side of it. How can I use this smart tech to more efficiently manage my property, right? So let's say we'll do a very simple mathematical exercise here. You got a thermostat. It's got 5 basic points you can get out of it. Current temperature, ambient temperature, so set temperature, ambient temp, the humidity, what mode am I in, and am I running, yes or no? 5 points. If you hired somebody to stand in every apartment you have for 200 units and write down every 30 seconds what that data was, you get 3 million data points a day. Think about what you could do if you had 3 million data points a day, how just your HVAC is operating. Let's expand that out to door sensors, window sensors, smoke detectors, leak detection, the key locks themselves. All these things are what facilities managers need to really manage your apartment more efficiently or your entire property more efficiently. That's what Trust Hab is. We are taking all those devices, aggregating into one platform rather than going with 5 different platforms to manage that. So that's high level who we are. If you ever want to talk about it, I've got 1 business card left. Whoever wants it first, come get me, I'll give it to you. If I find another one, I'll give it to a second person. When Wes reached out and said, hey, we're thinking about doing this event, I said, yeah, I'm in. And he said, well, I haven't even told you what it is yet. And I said, that's right, go ahead. I'll give you the floor, Wes. He said, well, we're going to do an event at Whitewater Rapids. I said, I'm in, I'll sponsor the bar. He said, what? Is there going to be a bar? Yes, Wes, there's going to be a bar. But the reason for that is because, one, these kind of events for me are very important. It's not necessarily about us, the vendors, but really about you guys. At the end of it, you guys are the heartbeat of the organization you work for, right? As you guys grow and get better and make your properties more efficient and make your properties better, that's going to help at the corporate level, it's going to help with the industry overall, and it's going to drive everything forward. I worked in college athletics for 10 years. I'm a huge fan of student athletes. I'm a huge fan of college students overall. I want to see everybody get better. We can drive, it's a microcosm. The student housing industry getting better will affect the entire student experience overall, right? And we all know that. We definitely need to work on focusing on that. But again, it's looking at things from a different perspective. We've talked about it a couple times today, but you have these big conferences like Interface and Student Expo that they had in California. They're wonderful. C-level guys, we're looking at things from 50,000 feet. Hey, what building are you going to buy this week? I don't know. I was thinking about this one over here. What do you think, right? Oh, yeah, sure, we'll buy that. I'll give you this one instead, right? But that doesn't really help you guys. We can help you guys get better, and that's what this conference or this summit is all about. And doing it regionally is even better because it makes it so much easier for everybody to participate. But again, just looking at it from a different perspective. I was told I had 5 minutes, so I'm really rushing through this. Now, with all that being said, the next guy we got coming up, Michael Newton, great friend of mine for at least 2 hours now. You guys will be really impressed. But in all honesty, I sat down with him for a few minutes. I was like, man, this guy's got a great head on his shoulders. He's going to help you look at your marketing strategy from a completely different perspective, because at the end of the day, it's not about you, and it's about identifying how to motivate the people you're talking to. So I'm pretty excited to listen to it. Again, I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I enjoy speaking to him. But Michael Newton.
So everyone, as Wes just said, I'm Michael Newton. I'm the founder of a company called Swarm. We do all things collegiate marketing. We specifically focus on influencer marketing. But really what my job is we help companies, right now specifically in student housing, we help them take their message that is curated by older generations, I think is the polite term. Because they're marketing to college kids, and right now, and for the next probably 3 to 4 years, we're seeing this huge shift of the generation that's in college. In about 4 years, everybody that's in college will be a member of Gen Z. Now, can somebody please raise their hand if they've heard anybody talk about at a conference, how do we reach Gen Z? How do we market to Gen Z? So it's a thing that is talked about quite a bit, and there's this like mystique around it. And to me, it's quite obvious why nobody really understands how to market to Gen Z and why there's this disconnect between the older generations that are in charge of marketing to Gen Z. It's kind of hard for somebody who's 30, 40, 50 years old to curate a marketing strategy to reach somebody who's 18, 19, and 20. There's a huge disconnect there. And what I want to talk about today is something called marketer's bias. And I want to tell you what it is, why it's a problem, and how we can fix it to make our marketing better. So every human in this room and every human in the world that has ever existed has six core things that motivate them. And these 6 core things are at the very foundation of every decision and transaction that is made in our lives. So I want to teach you all what these six things are, and then why they're important when we're marketing to Gen Z. So first, I'd like to say that people think that Gen Z is this mysterious group of people that has like a weird way of thinking and views everything differently and doesn't respond to traditional methods, and it's just this really mysterious thing that people are trying to do. Now, as a member of Gen Z, I'm here to tell you that it's not that complicated. You know, you don't need, there isn't anything mysterious about it. From our perspective, it's very obvious why the marketing is quite frankly terrible, and it just doesn't connect. And that is because, and this is sort of the overlying topic that we're going to talk about, is marketer's bias. So there are these 6 core needs that everybody has, these 6 things that motivate them. So I'm going to go through those, and then I'm going to talk about how they apply to this big idea. So the first need that everybody has is certainty. People need stability, predictability, safety, and comfort. They need to know that their relationships and that their environment are secure and they aren't going anywhere. These people are typically risk averse, and they're motivated by hearing things that reassure them that whatever they're doing is going to be secure and safe, and there's no unseen changes that are going to happen out of the blue. The second is uncertainty and variety. So this is actually the opposite of the first, which is kind of interesting. So everybody has a need for variety in their life. This is why people travel. This is why people have different colored shirts. People need something different every day. Now, and keep in mind, I should have covered this just a minute ago, every person has typically 1 or 2 motivators that are dominant in their life. So think of these 6 things as groups of people. So the group of people who fit into the uncertainty and variety group, and that's their dominant motivator. They need surprise. They need exciting things to come out of the blue and surprise them with change. So I mean, like, the reason people are like my girlfriend, the reason she has 800 t-shirts is because she's an uncertainty and variety person. There's not much else to say about that. So the third motivator is significance. Now, people who are dominantly motivated by significance typically take pride in vanity. They take pride in accolades and achievements. They have a deep feeling or a deep need to feel wanted and needed. They need to feel special and in some cases superior. They thrive off recognition and awards. The fourth motivator is love and connection. Now, this is probably arguably the most important, because from the very moment we're born, we have this need to feel loved and feel connected with others. Now, especially with Gen Z, I think this is absolutely one of the largest groups of people. Is we're the first generation to grow up with native technology everywhere in our lives. Most of our human interaction happens through a screen. Our human nature tells us that that's not genuine, and that doesn't fulfill our need to connect with others and feel loved and connected. So there's this deep need in these people to have genuine relationships, connect with people, feel loved, feel like they're part of a community and a family, and really feel that friendship and consistent interaction with those that they feel connected with. The fifth motivator is growth. Now, the people who are dominantly motivated by growth always need to be improving, whether that's emotionally, spiritually, experiencing new things, learning, and overall developing themselves. This is the thing that drives them and makes them happiest. Now, the last is contribution. And Gen Z has this is a huge group of people, and it's something new that we're kind of seeing happen, is they have this innate need to feel like they're doing something that betters the world, that feels like they're part of a movement that is giving to a cause. This need is to give beyond their own needs, to help others, whether that's by giving their time or skills or money, whatever it may be. And so this is kind of how they achieve fulfillment and happiness through this service. So there's these 6 core motivators, right? And each person in this room can probably identify with 1 or 2 that drive their decision making. Okay, so if this is the case, then the way I talk to one of you, from the perspective of a marketer, the way I market to one of you should inherently be different than the way I market to 5 others, because everybody has their own intrinsic value system and their own couple things that motivate them. So this is where we get into this idea of marketer's bias. And the reason why I believe that most marketing, especially when we're trying to reach Gen Z, just doesn't connect, it doesn't stick, it just doesn't work, is because the people who are creating the messages, the people who are curating these marketing strategies and these marketing campaigns, are telling the story of their brand and telling the story of their property from the perspective of what they need to hear. They're telling it from the perspective of what motivates them. So if somebody is predominantly motivated by certainty and stability in their life, and they're creating a marketing campaign for a property, and they're pushing this out, and that's the sole focus, is they're hitting on those points of certainty, predictability, stability. They're talking about every Monday and every Thursday we have cookouts. We have these events scheduled throughout the year that you're guaranteed to go to. We guarantee you a parking spot. If that's all they're talking about, and the only points they're really hitting on are certainty, they're really only going to resonate with about 16% of everybody they reach through their advertising. That leaves 84% of everybody they touch with their advertising. It leaves it on the table. It's a huge opportunity that's missed. So what I want to kind of explain and hopefully give you all some tactical tools you can go implement tomorrow, if you will, is I want to teach you guys how to look at this list of human motivators and then understand exactly how we can implement those into our marketing, so that when we are running an advertising campaign, when we are telling our story, telling our brand story, we're resonating with everybody. The idea being that when somebody hears about your property and they learn and they're listening to your story, they're learning more about your brand, what they're feeling is an emotional connection with the very things that motivate their decision making with your property. They need to feel like when they hear what your property is doing and they hear the story about different programs you have and different things that are implemented into the lifestyle of the property and the culture, they need to feel like this is the place for me. This is where I need to be because I feel it on an emotional level. And that's the disconnect that's really not happening in most cases. And so I want to kind of go over exactly how we can do that. So let me go back real quick and go through these again, just and sort of touch on, how do we use this to, how do we implement this into our marketing? How do we use this to better our story? So for people who are predominantly motivated by certainty, like I said a bit ago, if you're marketing to these people and you're talking to somebody whose main motivation is to feel stable and secure, the things you're going to tell them are the things that are just that, stable and secure and guaranteed. You're going to want to talk about that you guarantee them a parking spot. There is a set schedule of things that are going to happen at a predictable rate. There's nothing that comes out of the blue. There's no surprises when they're living at your property that they wouldn't feel excited about. So these are things you can implement, and this can be in the context of social media marketing. This can be in the context of things you talk about to them when you're touring. There's a lot of applications you can use this for. So if you're talking to someone or you're trying to market to the group of people who are dominantly motivated by uncertainty and variety, you're going to want to talk about the events that you throw randomly. How sometimes you have these these awesome barbecue events out by the pool. Sometimes you have these movie nights that are just sort of out of the blue. Sometimes you give your residents a gift that they didn't expect and didn't even know about. People who are motivated by significance. Ways you can use this to sort of bring these people into your property and get them connected is by, and it could be as simple as adding a new post, a new social media post to your Instagram every week that basically highlights maybe a resident of the week. Maybe you're highlighting achievements that your residents have gotten throughout their academic career or in their, as they're starting their career. There's a lot of things you can do. The main thing is that you're highlighting them and you're giving them something to be proud of. And that's going to connect with them. That's going to resonate with them on a very personal level. So people who are motivated by love and connection, if you're going to try and market to these people, you're going to want to talk about how your culture, your community is like a family. That when they live there, they have friends who are sort of built into the price of the apartment. That they will belong there and that they'll feel at home. People who are motivated by growth, there's a lot of ways you can connect with these people. Maybe you can talk about how amazing your gym is and how the positive environment there supports your academic growth and supports your ability to learn and develop personally. People who have a need for contribution. Now this is something that I haven't seen a lot of properties do, but I think could bring a lot of value and allow properties to connect with this entire group of people, which by the way is huge, especially when you're talking about Gen Z, is maybe you could implement a program into your property where one day out of the month, the property gets together and they do some sort of community service, they work a soup kitchen, they do some sort of charitable act, so that, let's say somebody whose dominant motivator is contribution, if they walk in and they're learning about your property, and you learn that they're motivated by contribution, and you tell them, oh, well, that's really interesting because, every 13th day of the month or 14th day of the month, we go do this charitable thing. Well, you will probably be the first property to have ever told them that. While they're shopping for properties, they're going to be emotionally attached to that thing that is now attached to your property, and so they're going to be that more likely to want to live there. So really what I'm trying to get across is that when we're marketing to Gen Z, it's not some sort of mystical thing. It's not something that requires you to have some consulting firm tell you what to do. All it is you have to understand that as a marketer, we have a bias where we want to tell our story from the perspective of what would motivate us, what would connect with us. And when you have somebody who's 30, 40, 50 years old doing this, trying to reach students, it's oftentimes not going to connect. It's just not going to stick. So what we need to do is we need to implement an aspect of our story into our brand in every single piece of marketing that we put out that encompasses and casts a wide net that will catch all 6 types of people. And like I said earlier, most companies and most properties that I see are focusing on one. And when you only focus on one, you're only going to resonate with about 16%. You're leaving 84% of everybody you touch on the table, and they're not connected with your property, and you're leaving a lot of money on the table. And the last thing is that none of these are mutually exclusive. And I think marketers tend to have a bias to believe that. None of these things are mutually exclusive. You can reach and connect with and build a brand that resonates with all 6 types of people without taking away from each one. And so I think that if we were to implement, a strategy that casts a net that catches all 6 types of people, and we start to understand that when we're trying to reach Gen Z, we need to understand what their motivators are, and then we need to speak to them in a way that reaches what motivates them. So the last thing I want to just touch on real quick is sort of the how do I figure out what their motivators are? Because that's obviously like the main question here. It's as simple as this. If you're talking to, and by the way, like most people that are part of a specific clique or a specific group, they're all kind of the same. And that's kind of bad to say, but like in college campuses, that's just the truth. So if we do, say, like a focus group where we find a fraternity guy and a sorority girl and somebody who's really hard in their academics, we find a student athlete, and we sit down and we talk with them about where did they live before they were at your property. You can do this with current residents, you can do this with people that are coming in for tours, and all you have to do is say, you find out where they were living. If they were living at a dorm room, well, what did you like most about it? And their answer to what did you like most about it is going to tell you one thing that drives them. All you have to do is listen. They'll tell you what they need to hear from you in order to make that decision to live there. So if their answer is, well, we had these like parties that would just sort of come up randomly. We would have, sometimes we would have, pizza in the lobby, and they would, call over the intercom that we had pizza in the lobby. That was really exciting. Sometimes we'd have movie nights. It was just a really great experience. Like we would not, we would have all these surprises consistently. It's obviously an uncertainty and variety person. And then if you don't necessarily get an answer out of that first question, just hit them with the opposite and say, well, what did you like least about it? And the answer to that question is probably going to tell you the same thing. If that same person is an uncertainty and variety person, what they're going to like least about it was probably that it was boring. There was nothing cool going on ever. It was really bland, and it wasn't an exciting place to live. And so when somebody tells you what type of person they are and which group they fit into, they're literally telling you what you need to tell them in order to convince them to live your property. And so that's pretty much all that I have. Hope that was valuable in some capacity. So thank you all.